as well as with the questions from the audience. So because everybody is there and we've reached a good number on the participants, maybe Tony, you want to kick off and start the session?
Excellent. So thank you everyone for coming in today. Thank you to the panelists for joining us, and also the attendees. We have so far 92 attendees to the webinar. I'm going to ask all the panelists to shut their video off, and I can do a short presentation on the Access Space Alliance. And as soon as I'm finished, I will then ask you all to come back in. Excellent. Thank you for that. Let me just make the screen a bit wider and share my screen and presentation in a second. Okay, I think you can see my presentation now. Excellent. So welcome again to the webinar of the Access Space Alliance. Today's topic is space financing, a European perspective, for which we have a moderator, Bonnardel. In a second, I will introduce the full panel. I'll give you a run-through of a very quick run-through of who we are, what we do, and so on. So welcome. I hope everybody's safe under the current situation. It's now nearly 1 year we have kicked off these webinars to the Access Space Alliance. We are here to support the small satellite sector and the new space as well. Let's have a short introduction from us, and then we'll have a kickoff with a presentation discussion for the panelists. We will have a Q&A session towards the end. The webinar is being recorded, and you will find this recording in the YouTube channels. Very simple to find. You just search on YouTube as Access Space, and you'll find all our previous webinars, and this one will be also placed there in a couple of weeks. Just to ensure that everybody knows this is copyrighted. It's a material from the Access Space Alliance. You're free to use it in your media material if you like. Just please refer to this webinar in your references. And if anybody would like to know a bit more about the Access Space Alliance and what we do, write to myself. My email is at the bottom of this chart, or look at our website as well. We have a great panel today, a lineup of 8 individuals, professionals from the industry. Betty will moderate the panels, and I will let Betty introduce each of the panelists in a second. I'm going to move ahead with a little bit of information on the Access Space Alliance. We are a alliance of a non-for-profit association of the small satellite sector formed in March 2019. We've now been running for nearly 2 years. Our first biggest engagement was our conference in July 2019 at the European Space Agency, EXAT, in Arwell. We have now about 50 members, which we restarted. We kicked off the membership from January this year, and we have so far 50 new members who have come in. We have based in the UK, in France, and Germany as well, for those that are interested. So our executive team is formed by Betty, who's going to moderate this panel, myself, Christian, and Alexander from Brussels. And as I said earlier, we are formalizing the alliance with the proper membership from January this year. We are also formalizing our first council very soon. We just created a new committee, the finance committee, in fact, and so this webinar is part of that arrangement. So this year's activities of the Access Space Alliance are a mix of committees, webinars, for example, and topics, specific topics, which will start soon. And we will be organizing advice bureaus for the members who are in need of advice in any subject matter which relates to their business in space. And we will be also attending conferences and international meetings as well. And also we are organizing our next conference, the second conference next month. I will show you the banner. So in terms of the committees, we have a Free Space Optical Communications Committee, a Regulatory and Space Policy, a Lunar Development Committee, and a Finance Committee, which is actually chaired by Alexander and Betty. In terms of our next conference, save the date, we'll be sending out invitations for registration of the conference over the next 1 or 2 days, hopefully tonight if I can. On the 4th and 5th of May, we have a lineup of panels and speakers from pretty much all over the world. We hope you can attend that. Today's webinar has been registered by 275 people from 49 different countries. In terms of geographical, in terms of numbers of people for each country, you see this from the left side. It's as usual from the United States, USA, and Europe. We have lots of participants, but as well as from Africa, Middle East, and in the Americas, we have quite a few people attending. It's just an issue of time zone, I presume. And then we're ready to start the webinar. So Betty and the panelists, if you can come into the webinar, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be with you today, and a real pleasure to have such an impressive lineup for this event. I would like to know that in regards to the list that was presented to you of the panelists, Tomas Jonsson kindly accepted to replace Martina, who was not available at this time. I wanted to welcome you, and before we start, I would like to thank Alexandre, who was mentioned on several occasions, but he's been the key organizer of this event. So thank you very much, Alexandre. And without any further ado, I would like to invite each of you in the order I'm giving, so that we start with Tomas. You give a short introduction about yourself, and you have 5 minutes to describe your organization and the activities or the topics on space that you would like to do. Tomas, the floor is yours.
Right, thanks very much. So I'm Tomas Jonsson, and I'm responsible for working with the Commission's startup and entrepreneurship policies in DG DeFi. And we actually have a department dealing with defense industry and space companies. So that's some good news. The other news is that we have a new 7-year work program with new fresh money to start new activities. So, and a bit about me. Okay, I'm a Commission official, but I've also worked in the private sector in my home country, Sweden, with venture capital investments and helping entrepreneurs. So this is an area that I feel particularly for, and we're going to do our best in the coming years to support all the space companies based in Europe. Would you like me to continue with the presentation, or shall we do a round?
Yes, go ahead with the presentation, please. Thank you, Tomas.
Great. So we're going to talk a little bit about investments, what is perhaps missing in Europe, and what we can do about this in the coming years. And to help you a little bit, I will try to share a few slides if I can. Let's see here. Can I choose to show my slides here?
Yeah, you just have to press the point share screen on the bottom.
Yeah, and then it says
and then you
only
have to
host
select,
all panelists.
You have to select. No, you have to select the file.
Let me see. Oh yeah, here we go. So hopefully, can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Right. I'll do this to make it a little bit easier. Huh. It's a little bit fiddly with the screen sharing, but let me see here. Can you see it full screen? Sufficiently, because I'm trying to figure out here what.
We need to press file slide view, I suppose, at the top left.
Yeah, exactly. Now it was possible to click now. So sorry about the delay. So we have tried now to put together a package of actions for the next 7-year period here, where we will be we will have more coherence, and we will have a better focus on the needs of startup companies to help them both get off the ground in the early stages, but also to help them grow. Right, and we think that this is this is the part where perhaps we didn't have enough of a focus in the previous years, notably the growth stages. So hopefully the new Cassini initiative will have something for companies in all these various stages. And I can see that talking money today is excellent because we have a panel with all the right people representing, you know, both development of space technology and financing of companies. So this will be well covered. Right. If we started looking, what does the space industry look like globally? Well, we can see it's a very interesting industry that grows quite quickly over a longer period of time. There will be many interesting market opportunities in the coming year, not only with Earth observation and geolocalization, but also internet connectivity will probably be a fast-growing segment for companies active in space. And we have also noticed the new space trend. In this case, we mean that there are markets with paying customers and companies using private investors to fund their expansion plans. We should benefit from this to a higher degree in Europe, we believe, and we will try to set out a series of actions to make that happen. So the challenges for the EU space industry are basically that we have top-notch space R&D and skills, so a lot of good things to build on. Perhaps Europe is lagging behind slightly in building viable businesses and businesses that can grow and become large companies. To some extent, EU companies rely on procurement and grants, and that's where we think we can slightly tilt our policies to encourage companies to build a stronger presence on the private markets with private customers, so that they can generate more revenue, and that in turn will help them to raise the funding they need for their expansion plans. Now, what about the financial markets? Well, we can see that at the same time as Europe has set another record in terms of VC financing in 2020 during a global pandemic, it is still a little bit harder for companies developing space technology and also digital applications based on space data to access financing. It probably has something to do with a lack of venture capital funds specialized in space investments, but also that we need to have more role models. I mean, companies that have shown that they can become successful in these markets, and that it's a very attractive segment for investors to go to. So how can we do that? Well, we can work it both ways. We can both try to attract more VC funds to move into investing in various space investments. But you can also make the companies more investment ready. So what are the, let's say, the rationale for supporting space entrepreneurship? There are plenty of good reasons. First of all, that new space technology in Europe can provide a lot of new functionality and drive down costs, meaning that we will have better access to space, we will have better access to various space-based services. And we can have a lot of young, innovative companies building these new digital services that are based on space data, but also information coming from other areas. You can combine it into smart services for companies and authorities and perhaps also individuals in all kinds of market segments. We have seen a lot of that innovation already taking place, and we think there is a lot more to come. So the second thing we want to encourage is to try out new business models, that the commercialization of space takes place on many different levels and in many different markets. And to do this, probably we have to see an increasing role of venture capital funds, but also, of course, debt funding to go to space companies. And debt funding in particular, accessing this requires customers and revenue. So that's the area where we have to make companies more successful at building their businesses. Now, we've tried out a number of different activities in the past 5 years. Many of them have proved to be both popular among the participants, and they have generated a lot of benefits. But now we can put together a package called the Cassini Initiative, which will be more coherent. We will have more activities focused on the growth needs of companies, and we will have a bigger budget. And in addition to this, we will collaborate much better with ESA and other organizations to make this happen together, because we think that this collaboration will really unlock a lot of things. We will have much greater networks. We will have a lot better outreach, and plenty of expertise. And of course, we're going to work also with the European Investment Fund and the European Investment Bank, as well as with private investors. So what we're focusing on in this talk is, of course, how to make companies more investment ready. So the first thing we would like to see is a Cassini matchmaking, which will be a series of events to try to help companies to connect better with private investors, and also to drill them a little bit to become really sharp at giving their pitches and explaining why the value propositions they have will be profitable in the future, and why the investors should look at investing in them. And in parallel, we will try to attract more venture capital funds to be active investors in these space segments by setting up a special investment fund of funds together with the European Investment Fund. And we will do this under the chapeau of InvestEU, which is the new European investment program, where we will have also here more coherence. We will have clearer terms for the investments and larger products, so that we have a better reach onto the market. So hopefully it will take a few months, and then we will have this action operational, which we call the Cassini Seed and Growth Funding Facility. Of course, we will not pick the companies to get investments from the Commission side, but we rely on the European Investment Fund to work together with the private actors, who will decide what are the best companies to invest in, and how they will work together with these companies to turn a good profit, and hopefully create these success stories that will in turn attract more investments to these areas in the years to come. And to support this, we will have the Cassini matchmaking, where we will hopefully then make it easier for companies to partner up both with large companies and with investors. We have a number of other activities also to help companies raise their business skills. So what we refer to as the Cassini Business Accelerator is really focused on sales and generating revenue growth in the companies, so that they will be more successful and have a slightly easier time to raise investments. Right. With this overview, we will have a lot of things to announce in the coming months. So we're just waiting for things to be adopted and fall into place. And you can find the news published on our websites. There will be a special website called cassini.eu with a lot of these news. So thanks a lot. I'll stop here and see if we have any questions, perhaps.
Before we go to the questions, we're going to go to the presentations, but there were a couple of comments, because unfortunately your slides had some gray areas that were appearing, and I would ask if you could kindly share your slides with us, so we can share them with the audience, if it's okay with you.
I'll make a short version of the slides and send to you as a PDF, sure.
Thank you very much. So without any further ado, and thank you very much for Tomas for this very important and critical overview. I think the Cassini scheme is a very promising tool. I would like to invite the other panelists, and then we can start and kick on discussion. So
very good. Thanks,
Shiva, Dustdar, if you can join us, you work at the EIB, and I would like you to come now. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting us. And indeed, it's great to follow Tomas because he sort of has given a bit sort of that wider framework. For those of you who don't know the European Investment Bank, well, you are missing out. You should definitely check us out. We are the Bank of the European Union. We are also the Climate Bank, hence I'm wearing, of course, green. And space has really been a strategic sector, I mean, needless to say, for the European Union, but clearly also for the bank. Historically, we have financed obviously the traditional space sector, you know, the big companies and the public sector. But what really has happened in the last few years is actually quite exciting. And it's really nice to be on the panel with some of the beneficiaries, or in particular, the Orbit, who has gotten some venture debt. Also Spire has gotten some similar venture debt from us. So we are basically seeing two trends. On the one hand, we are supporting smaller companies with the sort of new or the relatively new instruments of venture debt and thematic finance. And we are also with the larger players sharing in the risk. And here, for instance, we had a financing last year of the Ariane launcher program, where in part of the financing, we are actually we're sharing in the success of the program. So this is just to show you that we are adapting to the needs of the space sector and are really also coming into it with an open mindset to continuously looking at how can we better ensure that such a strategic sector that is giving Europe obviously a certain level of maybe strategic autonomy is really actually extremely important for climate. If you think of all the various technologies and the links, and I would love to hear later from some of the panelists. So making sure that we remain relevant in that, and relevant to therefore a new set of actors. And hence advisory. This is the area that I'm representing. I'm heading the Innovation Finance Advisory within EIB's advisory. And I would like to maybe briefly do a plug for a study that hopefully all of you have read. And if not, you again better hurry up. It is on our website. I just show you, I still have a hard copy these days. These things are everything's digital, so I'm hanging on to my hard copy. We did that study at the request of the European Commission. I should say that our advisory is a joint, Innofin Advisory is a joint partnership between the European Commission and the EIB, and therefore we really work quite well together, and it's exciting to do so, especially in the space sector. So this particular study gave us some really good insights of the dynamic nature of the space industry, and in particularly focusing on now the commercialization of space. I will not go into the depth of it. I mean, it had findings that were nevertheless quite relevant for us. On the one hand, underlying the information asymmetries that exist, meaning there is a lot of lack of understanding. Space is, brings perhaps a lot of childhood memories, but when you look at the investor community, there is a lot more work that needs to be done to really broaden and deepen the understanding of space. But you also have on the financing front, a lot of the needs of the companies are similar to the deep tech sector, and hence the need for this sort of patient capital, for a lot of equity investments coming in early to set up these companies, as Tomas was saying, so that they ultimately are big enough and get to the debt financing in due course. And finally, the role of the public sector, that was another finding that came out, being so absolutely important, this sort of public-private partnership approach. Therefore, the recommendations, and they are the ones that we're right now really actively putting in place. And I really find it exciting to hear about Cascinari, because it very much is addressing many of the things that came out of our joint study. So the recommendations were on the one hand referring to this enabling ecosystem, having to support it. I think events like this one are critical, and making sure that we find a way to address the knowledge gap, but also the pull mechanisms and not and really to ensure that we understand the role of procurement. I heard recently the new DG of ESA refer to this, and I hope that we will see more of that. The US NASA is obviously has been way ahead of that in creating SpaceX with their procurement ultimately. So hence making sure that we use these pull mechanisms. Then the role of access to the role of risk capital. I think our study led to actually an Innofin space equity window to be sort of piloted and reinforced, and really looking forward to see that sort of capital going more into therefore the venture capital space, so that more equity financing can come in and paving the way for other financing. And then fourth, I would say the advisory support, which, and here I won't say anything about the project advisory when we help companies, but focus on perhaps a really exciting thing that came out of our study, which we have put in place, which is the Space Finance Lab. It's bringing together pretty much the key stakeholders. We're talking of the policy, of course, community, the European Commission, ESA, but we're also referring to the bringing in the investors, private and public, equity and debt, and of course the space company themselves, big and small. We are now, of course, on a digital format. The last one was co-hosted with ESA. The next one is actually co-hosted with the European Commission. This has a financial engineering lab perspective, bringing the stakeholders together to rewrite the narrative, also to ensure that we really help the space industry to broaden the investor base for the space industry and develop additional new mechanisms and products to go there. So I will end with that, just to say that the EIB, of course, is therefore very open to bringing these ideas into our own activities, and we of course work very closely with the European Commission and then our subsidiary, if I may call, the EIF, and I know the EIF will follow now myself, and really excited to be here today. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Shiva. Two things is that thank you so much, and the opportunity is mixed, is also for us to be informed by you, so it's a great event, and thank you for accepting to be here. The second thing is that, can you give us at some point the link of the report, so either we post it to the participants or we can share it afterwards. And also if you have some more information on the Space Finance Lab, I suppose eventually that could be shared with the participants. But
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. It was very informative. David, if I may ask you to follow up and give a short presentation about the EIF now. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for having me here today. This is really interesting to attend that kind of event and to discuss with all the stakeholders. As it was mentioned by Tomas, we have all the channel of financing, at least when it comes to European institutions, starting with the European Commission, the EIB, the EIF. So glad that we managed all together to be here to give our views and explain a bit what has been done to date and what will be the future for space financing. So indeed, I'm working for the European Investment Fund, which is, as Shiva just mentioned, a subsidiary of the EIB. And we have a particular focus. And for those who don't know us yet, we are a kind of finance provider for SMEs as a starting point. But given the way we are organized, the size of the market, and many other elements, we are acting as a we are interacting with financial intermediaries of two categories, and the one which is of importance today for you and for us is the venture capital funds. So what we do is that we are typically investing as an LP, a limited partner, into funds. So not directly into the companies or the startups, but into the funds that will ultimately invest into the companies. What we've been doing for the last 25 years is that we have been supporting the development of the European VC market. We have been, from far, I would say, the largest LP in this segment, investing on average 1.5 billion euros a year into VC funds. Specifically, as far as I'm concerned, I'm heading a team which is focusing on selecting and investing into funds which are focusing on what we call, generally speaking, deep technologies. which include, in our view, the new space, what we call the new space, because it's always a question of definition, but new space, which is for us both upstream and downstream, and all the technologies that have an application in space. What we've been doing so far specifically in the space segment is that through this Innofin program, which ended up at the end of 2020, we have been investing a pilot of 100 million euros, which has been designed with a commission to support space-related programs and initiatives. We did this through two different ways. It was mainly through, again, as we typically do, fund investments, but we also made one co-investment into a company, which is a Finnish company called Ice Eye that I'm sure you know well. And what we've done in terms of fund financing is that we have backed all in all 4 funds, 2 which are specifically designed and focused on space only. One being the Italian fund called Primo, which is focusing on Italian technology transfer type of initiatives. And the other one, which is called Orbital Ventures, which is sitting here in Luxembourg when I am sitting as well, and which is operating on a pan-European level, investing in early to, I would say, mid-stage startups in the space industry. But what we noticed as well is that not only the specialized players have a role to play in space financing, but also the more generalist players which have a partial dedication to space. Should it be because they have a specific knowledge in the team, one of the team member being technically highly skilled in the segment, or because of a particular relationship with an entity, should it be research centers, a university, labs, or for any other reasons. So what we've done as well is that we have backed 2 funds which are more deep tech generalist type of funds, but we backed them with an overall ticket in terms of amount, but part of those tickets were coming from this Innofin space pilot, meaning that they have committed actually to invest a multiplier of this amount into space companies. So all in all, when we had all the amount available, thanks to what we've done, but also given the focus of those funds, all in all, from this 100 million that we have allocated and invested, approximately 350 million will be dedicated to space financing in Europe for the coming years. And this is only for the period going from 2018, end of 2018 to 2020, when the pilot was available. So this is a first step. This is from far not sufficient, we know, but the first objective was first of all to see whether we could find qualified players to receive that kind of financing, and also to better understand if the market was deep enough to absorb the capital. And we have realized that it was definitely the case. We've seen a number of great achievements, including this largest to date Series B financing for these German companies, Isar Aerospace, which raised $75 million last year in a Series B, with some of the funds that we've backed to the program, but also some other funds which have not been financed through any kind of space-related mandate or source of money, but still were highly interested in the segment and made some investments. So this is something which shows that the market is evolving. We know that there are lots of companies at the very early stage. ESA is doing a great job on this. The EIB also with this EIC program, which can possibly also finance that type of companies in a way. What we do is slightly later in terms of stage focus, but this is mainly through funds, and those funds now are up and running. They're just starting, all of them, their investment period. So for the 5 coming years, usually they will have to find projects that fit with their investment strategies. And on top of that, and I was happy to hear the most recent updates from Tomas, this Cascinari initiative is expected to have a significant impact on the European space market. We are convinced that combining various type of financing tools, and including a large part of it with the EIF through VC funds, is something which all in all will result in many companies of the European space sector getting additional capitals that for the time being they may be struggling to access. So we're really happy to be here and to listen to the other panelists and answer any question when it will be time for the Q&A.
So there are a couple of questions, and thank you very much, David. I think it was very informative. Matteo is here and is representing Primo Capital, so that will be a good transition. We're going to have Isa first also as an institution to come in and weigh in the discussion. If I may ask the panelists that are remaining, I'm sorry for that, to limit the interaction to maybe 4 minutes, to keep it short so that we can have a few minutes then left to the end of the session for questions and answers. So if I may invite Elia Montanari to come in and explain the ISA point of view. Elia.
Oh, thank you very much, Betty, and everybody for being here. And thank you also to colleagues who have introduced ESA in one way or the other. And so my role at the European Space Agency is head of management and control, meaning that I count people and money, including the one outside. So in terms of the ESA budget, I will just give broad numbers, and it exceeds 6.5 billion euro per year. Okay, the next refinance year will be next year, late next year, so late 2022. And for the people that don't know ESA very well, we are an international coordinator organization, so we are not actually a European Commission agency at this very moment. So we have the 22 member states, and as it was asked at the beginning of this session, yes, we focus on European type of investments. And we'll explain what sort of investment we are talking about. I've seen from the European Commission, yes, the space economy is actually grown. The latest price report shows a figure of in excess of 400 billion euro and growing. But actually, if you compare it to companies like Amazon or Apple, we're talking about revenues per year here. And is actually not that big. I mean, these are big companies, but it's not that big. About a quarter of that is governmental funding. You know, when you look at the global slice, and only a very limited amount is actually going to launch another hardware, you know, specifically satellite. And in fact, the biggest share, we are talking about, I would say, around 20 billion. One of the biggest share is actually the applications, which we represent, in particular in my job, together with the business incubator, the business application, and then we can add also the newly addition of the Lab and other elements that looks more into the startup, in particular the business incubation. Now, another element that is quite significant, and a few of our esteemed panelists have mentioned, is the amount of investment has gone into space most recently. And in fact, here, in particular, when we discuss about the commercialization of space, let's say that it's a little bit of a supply meeting now the demand, because effectively the demand for startups has now increased dramatically, and space has responded, yes. If we look into the last 10 years, let's say 190 billion have been invested by private public companies. And what I'm looking at, in fact, also in terms of projection, is when I do my valuation type of calculation, I could well see that in the next 15, 20 years, this valuation in terms of revs and also company valuation will exceed 2 trillion, let's say from 2035 onward. These sort of figures that I'm quoting, I will probably post a number of links, in particular the one for the investment, the global investment. I'm looking at Space Capital Quarterly, that is a US company, but it is providing a very useful and complete file of these investments. So what are we doing on our corner to prime this market? Because let's say we have always been busy, we have also been busy over the last 10 years creating the new space company of today. And in fact, we have probably the biggest cohort in history of about 2,000 companies that received about 400 million euro over the last 10 years, in which we give technical support, branding, and network. In particular, the latest thing that I was actually surprised, but nobody mentioned, is the special purpose acquisition companies. We have a couple of them. Actually, we pride ourselves to have a couple of them that unfortunately went to the US market, but still is good. It's good for the global economy. I will mention two. I'm sure that there are other in preparation. And one is actually Spire, and the other one is that is very well known for the weather forecast, near real-time weather forecast. That was part of the cohort of companies that we are working with, and we have funded. And the other one is actually Lithium. And by the way, I want also to spare a word, because EIB did fund also this company through that venture. So I really want to stress on the fact that there is a very nice collaboration, and more coordination is wished in that respect, because companies, I mean, these companies are coming from a very, very long way. They started very long way away, and now they get into the stage of finance where they are more mature. In particular, this one have been targeted by SPAC companies. That, for the benefit of the audience, is special purpose acquisition companies, basically a letterbox company that goes out for the next 2 years and try to acquire and list one of these companies. The second company that has received an enormous valuation and is probably less known as part of the sort of the space ecosystem is actually Lithium. And at the valuation, estimated valuation of 3.5 billion, is an enormous catch. There are many more that have hit the news. Most recently, we have heard about AST, Astra, and Black Sky. So and more are to come, in particular when money remains a little bit cheaper in terms of interest rate. So you've heard the ESA story. There are continuously funding opportunities that are available at our website, that is business.esa.int, and I will post also this link in the chat, that give funding between 50 to 100%, depending whether it is your own idea or the result of a competition. We still have about 300 million to spend, and as said at the top of my story, we will look to refinance at the end of 2022 with more and improved ideas also there. And in fact, maybe as a bonus, and because obviously everybody that is coming out of our cohort, not unlike the European Commission, we want to stress on the commercialization piece. Also our DG has mentioned it very strongly. What we do, we run this investor forum. We attract about 200 investors with dry powder of over, of several billions. And what is basically the supply side of this demand that is actually the investor, this 200 investor, is actually the companies that we've primed with the business and the business incubator side. The next investor forum will be in Zurich in July. We are aiming to have a physical event, and also we will actually run it at the occasion of the IAC in October in Dubai. So obviously, and maybe in terms of conclusion, as a short conclusion, and I mentioned it very, very briefly, we are wishing for better coordination, and we are very pleased to having worked with the EIB in a number of case studies. The Orbit is here today, and I was lucky enough also to participate, not directly with Bruno, but with the CEO, Luca Rossettini, in some of the due diligence. And but also I want to mention another one that raised quite a considerable amount of money with the EAC, the European Innovation Council, that also EIB supports and is part of the European Commission, where we actually work together This Hyber is an IoT constellation company, and as we know, a number of things spark, when you have data, security requirement and connectivity. This is an amazing story. I like to hear much more of them, and I like to see many more actually getting to the stage where they can be competing globally. We actually have, I believe that we have at least about 200 companies that are at around that stage. Some of them will be more lucky to get the European advantage. Other, unfortunately, will look at east to raise funds, or west, where most probably they will be gobbled by the venture capital there. Yes, as a conclusion, I just want to say, yes, let's coordinate the European institution efforts in terms of goal, strategy, and also the objectives, in order to bring them all together and to put all the pieces of the puzzle together in order to leverage the efforts. By the way, we have also today Matteo here. We also collaborate with them very often. So absolutely, and many other venture capitalists that are being created that actually have to take whatever is developed in terms of, let's say, prototype. We talk about minimum viable product to the next stage. That's really, really important. Thank you very much, and I'll get busy on the chat. I'll post also my link probably to the LinkedIn if anybody wants to to chat with me separately. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elia. It's very useful and very interesting to see the contrasting views of that ecosystem in Europe. Without any further ado, I would like Matteo to come, and if we can please keep it short, then I'm sorry, then it gives the opportunity to have a few questions, because after you, Matteo, representing a VC Primo Capital, we have the IBAN, and then we have the Orbit. So thank you very much.
So I have 30 seconds left, right?
No, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, great. Well, just a few minutes to describe what we do. Actually, we are a venture capital fund. We've been financed by our main investor is the European Investment Fund. So we are exactly in the frame that was described before. We are a 60 million fund right now, even if we are still raising funds. So we have a target at 80 million. I think we will get there. Our geographic focus is mainly Italy. So there's a kind of a limit for us, but I mean, this is what it comes out from the fund rules. We invest 80% in Italy and 20% abroad, where abroad is can be Europe, European Union, USA, Israel, UK, and that's it. We invest up to 5 million, ideally 2 areas. The first one more in the early stage area. So we invest, the sweet spot is around 1 million. And another kind of investment more for the scaling up of companies, where the first investment is around 2-3 million. Then we can follow on. Approximately the allocation is 1/3 in first installment and 2/3 in follow-ons. So we do have some reserve to follow the company through their growth. Well, just to give you an overview on what we are seeing, we invest all over space. I mean, upstream, downstream, and space related. So we are quite broad in the definition of space. Maybe it's interesting to share with you what happened so far. We started in July, so well, actually the deal flow building started a little bit before, but until now we have received approximately 400 investment opportunities, 2/3 in the upstream area and 1/3 in the downstream area. Actually, it was a little bit of a surprise. This one we would have said that would have been the contrary, 2/3 in downstream and 1/3 in upstream, while what we saw was that one. So I don't know, it's something that for you is normal. For us, it was a bit of a surprise. Just one comment about what I've heard. I think that as we are passing from, we are in the middle of a transition from a space which is dominated or I mean, just public sector is the main actor. There are now also some commercial / private operators, and I think that venture capital is a perfect instrument to create an ecosystem in this direction. So it's one of the instruments, but it's a good instrument to go in this direction and to finance the new space economy. So very happy to hear that there are more money to come to fund the new funds. Unfortunately, I think we will have closed our raising period, but for the others that will come, it's a very good news. And that's it. I mean, venture capital is the perfect instrument, as I said, and this is our role, our mission, and also our passion.
Thank you very much. I think you're a critical part because a lot of the startups will have to go through you to reach out to the investors, especially the institutional ones. So thank you very much for being there and the catalyst in that aspect. So I would like to invite Fabrice from EBAN to give the view of the Space Angel Network or European Business Angel Network. Fabrice.
Yes, thanks, Betty and Access Space for the invitation. Very happy to be here. Yes, I'm the chairman of EBAN Space, and EBAN is the European Business Angel Network. So we connect and support business angels, early stage investors, entrepreneurs, and corporates through the world. But our presence is as obviously in Europe. And in 2016, we launched EBAN Space to promote and advance the European ecosystem for space entrepreneurship, innovation, and investment. So we see today that EBAN Space is really at the center of the European space ecosystem. So we talk with everybody, and we have all friends here around the table. Our mission is really to bring together the European national and pan-European organization to become the hub for Europe. So we help also to promote the use of technology for the space sector and the technologies that have future space applications. So among, let's say, EBAN Space, we have representatives from different specialized business angel networks, like the Luxembourg Space Tech Angels or the UK Space Tech Angels. We have also ESA, which is part of our executive committee. And we have some fund like Seraphim Capital. So when we see today what is, let's say, a bit the private investment into space at the global level, if we look at the figures of 2020, we see that 7.7 billion USD has been invested, and it's a record, let's say, amount that has been invested in the space sector from different private actors. Of course, a reasonable part of it comes from business angels. What we also see is that the focus has been a lot on upstream with the launchers. There has been, of course, a lot of money invested in the launchers. And after that, it's mainly downstream. So at the contrary, what Matteo explained, that he received more from upstream than downstream, but we see anyway that a majority of investment was in the downstream. These are the data from 2020. It's maybe also, sorry. It's maybe also a consequence of the COVID, because with the COVID, a big focus has been also on all the services that benefit from data communication, like telemedicine, teleeducation, etc. So there has been in 2020 a bit less focus on hardware or space exploration, even if today we talk a bit about the space exploration with the moon. For example, in Luxembourg this week, there was the Space Resource Week. There is also the focus on Mars. What we see also is that US is dominating private investment. So from the VC side, but also on the business angel side. But it's followed by Europe. So in Europe, I think we can still be proud. And we believe at EBAN that business angels are key in establishing a strong ecosystem in Europe for space entrepreneurs, because we provide money at early stage. But we provide also much more. We provide networking opportunities, mentoring, we provide connection with the corporate world. And there has been success stories in Europe that benefited from business angels. Several people talk about Spire. Spire started with some business angels and now is doing a SPAC at 1.6 billion. ICE also in Finland that announced today a contract of over 50 million, and currently they're raising a very large round. They also started with business angels. And sometimes we also provide among connection, for example, some interesting things. I would like to mention an example. A few years ago, we organized an innovation showcase with Thales Alenia Space, and we invited startups our members invested in. And we had, I think, 8 or 10 startups. And after the meeting with Thales Alenia Space, Thales Alenia Space follow with all of them, and this resulted to some investment or at least some business cooperation. So this is typically the kind of initiative that I think business angel can do, and probably it's only business angel that can do this kind of initiative because it's probably not the role of VC or public institutions. Are there things missing? Yes, as a matter of fact, as an angel association, we need more money to support the angel ecosystem. That's why IBAN is looking at ways to increase money flow with some private-public partnerships. And today we are following up several initiatives in that respect. On the space, for space entrepreneurs, what we see is that in Europe, there are not enough VCs. We have the chance to have one here, and a few others have been mentioned today. But unfortunately, there is a lack of specialized space VCs. So what's happening for space entrepreneurs, and maybe the space entrepreneur that will follow up will be able to explain his experience. But usually at the beginning, there is some support from the European Commission, from ESA, national support. For example, in Luxembourg, we have the chance to have the Luxembourg Space Agency, which is very active to help space entrepreneurs. So generally, it's possible to find at early stage a combination of R&D funding and business angel money. But then when the company wants to scale, in Europe, unfortunately, there is some lack of money. And I think it was mentioned before that, unfortunately, some entrepreneurs have to go either in Asia or in the US to find some money. For example, what I see, because I'm a shareholder of Space Angels in the US, what I see is that we work with traditional VCs on space startup deals. In US, traditional VCs are not scared about space. Why in Europe, when you are a space entrepreneur, most of traditional VC, they are a bit scared by space because maybe they don't know space. And I think it should be our collective role to continue to demystify space. Of course, EC, ESA, etc., they are doing a lot in that respect. But I think we should do even more. And to explain really that space is helpful in any industry like health, agriculture, communication, industrial application. There are a lot that space can do. And unfortunately, even in the VC community, I see that many VC, they don't always see the benefit of space. So in conclusion, because I don't want to be too long, at IBAN, we welcome the new initiative like Cascinari. I think it's awesome. Of course, the previous public initiative from EIB, EIF, or ESA, because we have a long relationship with ESA. Of course, we like all this initiative. But yes, I would like to see probably more initiative coming from the VC community to support space companies and to have some maybe co-investment schemes together with business angels. So thanks again for the invitation, and very happy to be here.
Thanks, Fabrice. I think there is already quite some interesting trends going on, and the relationship between the business angels, the role of the Commission with the accelerator, for instance, and other activities are going to be quite critical. There is one word that hasn't been expressed, is the risk. The other one is traction. And these tend to be critical in terms of investment. We're going to hear if that was critical for Bruno, but they are traditionally associated with the space sector, lack of traction or early traction, and then the risk that can be associated with large infrastructure investments. So maybe Bruno can shed a light on that with his own experience. If we can keep it short, I know, Bruno, sorry, that gives us the opportunity to have a discussion afterwards. Thank you.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you for the invitation, Betty, and thank you to most of the people on the panel, because in some shape or form you've been helping the orbit. We went through the whole process. I mean, the orbit, for those who don't know, we're looking into in-orbit logistics, and we did go through several, not just rounds of funding, but also through using some of the mechanisms that were discussed here already. So I'm not going to go through them again. There's a couple of things that have probably not been mentioned. One has to do with crowdfunding and other exercises that are done at very early stages. We went through something similar to crowdfunding for the first demos, and we also went through a kind of a prize, a small prize in partnerships with universities. In that case, an American university and a Portuguese bank, that actually enabled us to kickstart a few things. What I can tell is, and I took a couple of notes on following on the discussions here, are two things. One is that the market in Europe is still very fragmented, and by fragmented I mean geographically fragmented. We discussed ESA. ESA is a good example. Yes, there are funding mechanisms in place, but there's geo-return rules in place as well, which means that the funding that will flow for the startups is also directly linked and directly correlated with the funds that each country puts in. And the same thing applies now for Primo space. I mean, we heard that most of the funding will flow to Italy, and there are other funds in place that will flow either to Luxembourg or to Poland or to other countries like that. So the market is still fragmented for an industry that is by definition global, and by definition needs to also operate across Europe if we want to leverage the capabilities in each country, because we do have complementary capabilities, and that is a bit of a struggle. So the orbit operates across Italy, Portugal, UK, and we now, for obvious reasons, expanding into the US with a bit more strength, and that has to do with, one, looking for the Series B funding, which we hopefully go through during the course of this year. But also, and Fabrice already mentioned, I mean, it's true that the pool of funding across the Atlantic is much wider and much deeper, and also the appetite for risk, as Betty was saying. So I think part of the exercise that all of us need to do is, one, what's the definition of a space company, in particular new space, and then therefore educate other VCs that are not linked to specialized space activities. This is particularly relevant for the downstream. We tend to put everything together in downstream as, uses Earth observation data or IoT data from space or whatever. At the end of the day, these companies, some of them are not. They don't have to be space companies. They use infrastructure like GPS. We don't consider a delivery application to be a space company, but it is space enabled. And if we switch off Galileo, switch off the GPS, it won't work. So that kind of education from a VC perspective, and the definition of what a space company is relevant. It doesn't necessarily apply to the orbit, because obviously we are putting ourselves into constructing that infrastructure and enabling that infrastructure to work seamlessly across end to end across the different domains. But we see that the demand is coming from us with customers, like some of them were mentioned, like Ivor and Spire and iSize. At the end of the day, they will want to produce data and to generate revenues that are not space related as such, and their customers are going to be in different markets. And that is something that sometimes is very hard to explain to a VC as well. I'll leave it here. I mean, I could go on forever, but I'll leave it here.
So thank you very much, Bruno. I think you're asking very good questions. And if I go back to Tomas, just an important question, because you're arriving with an amazing pot of money that could probably enable fantastic changes and in a way that can make the ecosystem thrive. What's the appetite to risk? What's your willingness to work with the public-private sector and all the people on the line? So that kind of dynamics would be interesting.
Yeah, right. So we have an amazing pot of money, meaning it isn't necessarily the biggest pot of money, but the good thing is that we can put some money from the European Commission together with capital at the European Investment Fund, together with money from the private investors. And since we encourage them to focus on upstream and downstream space-related investments, it will be quite a significant amount of investments in total, especially if you look over the next 7 years or so. And that's a long-term perspective that we will try to take from now on, to try to imagine, what do we want to see in the next 10 years? Well, first of all, we want to see several new venture capital funds active in space. And precisely as we heard, a moment ago, it doesn't need to be labeled space companies, can be, in a completely different market segment, but is enabled by technologies or data coming from space. So that's the reason why we want to work together with all these actors is that we really have the resources, the know-how, skills, and so on in Europe to make this happen. So let's stay here and build the best that we can, and use our partners in the United States and in the UK and Israel and so on as much as we can, and work together with them also.
So, Tomas, do you have a time scale of the Cassini project? I mean, the announcement was done in January. We're in April now.
Yeah.
What are the timelines and the milestones?
Yeah, exactly. So you probably heard it took a little bit of time just to get the work programs adopted, which is happening during these weeks. And work programs mean the money, right? And after we have that adopted, we will conclude agreements with the European Investment Fund, the European Investment Bank, and so on in the coming months. So I'm confident it will be rolled out at the end of the summer. And hopefully also the private actors, the venture capital funds, but also the business angel funds and individual business angels will want to work together well, to make a reality out of these space investments that we've been talking about now, because ultimately it is the private actors who will have to take a large part of the risks, but they also have a lot of the knowledge about how to develop companies and how to coach the companies to make them successful. So make the best out of that.
Thank you very much. Another question that was asked is that can UK company take advantage of these funds, and a bit more on the business accelerator if you have some. 2 questions.
Yeah, I should probably not get too deep into the eligibility, but we want to make things available to as many as possible. We'll have to come back on exactly how we can do that in practice. And there will, sooner or later, there will probably be an agreement to work together with the United Kingdom, at a high level, so we can implement it everywhere.
Thank you very much. There were some questions about what is space, and there was a question about the moon. Is the moon part of the space sector, or is it not? Or is it downstream or upstream looking at the Earth? What do you think? Shiva, I see you.
No, I'm definitely the wrong person. I mean, I certainly,
I
no, but I would have thought, no, I'm just, I thought it's a brilliant question. I can totally.
I can answer if you want, Betty, because yes. I'm involved. I'm one of the co-founder of Mana Electric. So our purpose is to manufacture solar panels on the moon from lunar regoliths. So I know a bit about the moon, let's say, ecosystem. No, I think moon is space, as a matter of fact, and it seems a bit very futuristic to go on the moon, etc. But there are serious plans from both NASA and ESA and some other parts of the world to go back to the moon and to establish a permanent base. And we will need a lot of things, of course, to build this permanent base. We will need energy, like Mana Electric proposed to do, but we will need also habitat. We will need oxygen. We will need to manufacture metals, to extract water, etc. So there are different countries like Luxembourg, which are very active around the future moon economy. Some big actors are also. But I see this today as a bit, as the gold rush. So today it's the early pioneers that are really strongly motivated by this. As soon as there will be some concrete results, in my opinion, we will see the early adopters to follow up. But it will take some time for sure, because it's quite challenging. But
thank you very much.
But there is I think there is a real potential for maybe the next 2 decades, something like this. Yes.
So I am conscious of time, and I said that kindly we would stay an extra quarter of an hour, but I don't want to expand too much on your kindness and go further. I would like to do several things. At first, and I'm sure the participants will join me in thanking all the panelists for their amazing insight, because it's been a great opportunity to learn what each of you are doing and contributing to the space sector. So that's fantastic. The video will be made available on the YouTube channel for everybody to go back and review the information and try to work on it. The other element I would like to tell all of you is that I think an organization such as Access Space Alliance is there to support you. So Tomas, Shiva, David, Matteo, Fabrice, Elia, really we're there as Bruno is here to give you that feedback, whatever you need, whatever shape, build together that ecosystem, because we have the same passion. We really want to make sure that things happen, and we can bring that view that is both European and beyond Europe. So really, if there are some opportunities for working together or being able to support you, don't hesitate, and we would be happy to either involve the members or transmit the information, or also bring some comments back whenever you think it's useful. So it's been a pleasure for all of you to all of the Access Space Alliance people to have you around tonight. And unless Tony has a last word to say, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much to everyone. So a couple of things to say. First of all, the moon is a very difficult subject to talk about. I'm not going to get involved with that at this moment, but nevertheless, you're most welcome to attend, as well as to provide your presence either with a 5-minute company pitch at the conference, which is going to happen on the 4th and 5th of May, not only for the panelists, but also for the attendees of this webinar. If you're interested to send us a recorded pitch, 4 to 5 minutes, we can then broadcast it during the breaks of the conference. So just send me an email if you would like to attend, and I can send you the invitation. Otherwise, just let me know if you would like to send us a recorded message that you would like us to broadcast. We'll put it together. It has to be professional in a way, about your company or your project, basically, not about anything else, coffee or things like that. It should be more about professional recording message that you would like the world to see, basically. So we're very happy to do that for you. And of course, as any organization, it's a free conference, but we are looking for sponsorship. If anybody would wish to show their logo, company logo, and a name in the conference, let us know. We'll accept also sponsorship as well. Thank you, Betty. Thank you, the panelists. And I would like now to end it here. Thank you very much. We had a great audience as well. All the best. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you to the organizers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Be in
Bye.
touch.
Bye-bye.